My mother-in-law pointed to the door in front of everyone and said, "Leave. We won't be slandered by a gold-digging liar." My husband stared at his plate. My sister-in-law smirked. I didn't beg. I picked up my purse, walked to my car, and called a lawyer. 6 months later, I slid a stack of subpoenas across their conference table and said, "Discovery starts Monday." By the time the judge signed my decree, every lie they used to kick me out had become an exhibit, and the world they built on those lies was gone. The night I learned truth isn't a guest at their table, if you've ever tried. To hold a family together with casseroles and spreadsheets. You know, the particular ache of setting down a dish and a fact at the same time and watching both get ignored. The casserole gets cold. The fact gets called tone. I'm Claire, 36, a project manager for a hospital system in North Carolina, the oldest of 3, child of a nurse who taught me to bring soup, and a mechanic who taught me to bring a socket set. I married into the Whitlock family at 28 because I thought love would translate across cultures. Mine, fix it quietly, and theirs, perform it loudly. It didn't. The Whitlocks are the kind of small city big family whose logo is on the back of half the pickup trucks, Whitlock Construction and Rentals, and whose name buys a table at the Rotary Fish Fry. Charles, my father-in-law, built the company with grit and good timing. Buy land 20 minutes outside town while it's still fields. Pave, pour, lease. My mother-in-law, Marianne, wields a church voice like a velvet mallet. My sister-in-law, Tatum, runs the interiors division, which means she orders tile and speaks fluent Instagram. My ex-husband, Evan, was groomed to inherit. He wore the role like he wore polished boots. Shiny, empty, borrowed. I fit in the way a carpenter's pencil fits at a catered wedding. Useful. Not chic. Not invited to the photo. They kicked me out over lies on a Wednesday in January after a family dinner at Marianne's, the kind where table appointments matter more than appetites. I had uncovered something the week before, an owner draw that looked like payroll to someone and like theft to me. I handled operations for one of the hospital's capital projects. Numbers are a language I trust. Whitlock's QuickBooks file didn't. I had asked quiet questions. I had asked again. The room heard me as an accusation. "Stop making problems," Marianne had said, voice sugar sharp. "This is family business." "It's business," I had said, calm. "If Whitlock is moving expenses into payroll to dodge taxes, you don't have a daughter-in-law problem. You have a federal one." That got me a text from Evan that read, "You embarrassed me, so we did dinner. Roast, potatoes, lies." Halfway through, Tatum stood, glass in hand, and announced that it hurt her heart that I was attacking Dad when he was generous enough to make me one of his own. Then she said the word again, gold digging, and added the one they keep for when they want to hit you without moving, barren. I had never heard someone call a woman that word outside of a 1950s pamphlet. It felt like someone cracked an egg in my lap. "Leave," Marianne said, pointing with a prayer's hand. "We will not be slandered in our own home." My husband watched the gravy pool on his plate and said nothing. I didn't beg. I didn't scream. I said something I had not planned, and I said it with the steadiness you use when you want your hands to hear you. "Okay, I'll go. I'll bring the truth back with me." I walked to my car. My legs shook. My dignity didn't. I put the key in the ignition and did the first useful thing anyone in my family ever taught me to do when the car refuses to start. Call someone who knows the parts. In this case, a lawyer. How to hold your own hand while the world tries to shake it. Her name was Allison Poole. She answered on a half ring and said, "Tell me everything you can say without swearing, then take a breath and swear if you need to." I told her about QuickBooks, about owner draws, about checks to shell vendors whose addresses were P.O. boxes that belonged to Charles's poker buddies. She listened like a mechanic and a priest. "Good news," she said. "You're not crazy. You're seeing what you think you're seeing. You're not their bookkeeper. You're not bound by privilege. You can talk about what you saw to the proper authorities. Now tell me, do you want to be married to him?" I opened my mouth. The truth got there first. "No." "Okay," she said, like we'd just decided on dinner. "Here's the plan." The plan took up 2 pages in a blue folder by the time she finished speaking. It had deadlines. It had phone numbers. It had words like discovery and subpoena deuces tecum that are more effective than "please stop lying" will ever be. It had light in it, too. Step 1, Move out quietly with dignity and a suitcase. I had until Friday to find a short-term apartment. I called my friend Gianna. She had a guest room over her garage that smelled like coffee and safety. Done. Step 2. Get copies of everything I could get without breaking the law. Emails where Charles told the accountant to reclassify. Checks made out to vendors that the office manager whispered were really Tatum's lifestyle. A QuickBooks backup file that I had on a USB because I'm obsessive. Done. Step 3. Change my accounts and my locks. Freeze my credit. File a note at the credit union. Do not add anyone to my accounts without calling me. Done. Step 4. Meet Allison in person Friday and sign the complaint. Divorce on grounds of indignities and adultery. It isn't slander if it's in discovery. Request for equitable distribution, temporary spousal support, and, for dessert, derivative claims as a 12% shareholder in Whitlock Rentals, LLC, which I had become early in our marriage when Charles had needed cash and preferred my check to his line of credit. Done with shaky hands. Step 5. Call the hotline at the Department of Labor about misclassified employees on Whitlock's job sites, and let Allison send a sealed package to the district U.S. Attorney's Office with the documents that smelled like PPP fraud and the kind of payroll tax mistakes that get people new wardrobes. Do you want to ruin them? She asked finally, gentler than the question sounds. No, I said. I want to stop being ruined. That'll do, she said. What happens when a woman who keeps recipes learns to subpoena divorce is paperwork with feelings? The feelings try to ride the paperwork. Don't let them drive. Allison told me that. I wrote it down. We filed. The sheriff served. Marianne fainted for church, not for court. Tatum posted a story with a song that had the word snake in it. The men lawyered up with a firm whose website has too many photos of marble. They expected me to fold. They didn't expect me to know where the file cabinets were in their souls. Discovery started. Sophia, Allison's associate, sent 31 requests for production that read like poems if you love justice. Produce any and all. Communications regarding misclassification of employees as independent contractors from 2019 present. Produce any and all documents showing transfer of PPP funds to owner, draws. Produce any and all QuickBooks. Backups for Whitlock Construction, LLC, and Whitlock Rentals, LLC from 2019 present, they objected. They said overbroad and burdensome, and this is family business. The judge said comply. Charles complied like a child asked to share his blocks, sullen, sloppy. He produced enough to hang himself by his own tie. Emails where he told the office manager to code bonus as subcontractor. A check register with 24 payments to Oak Tree Partners, totally Tatum's shopping fund. A text where Evan told a foreman to pay off a city inspector with gift cards instead of cash. Smarter. My phone buzzed with OIG emails. Investigations moved like lava. They moved. The doll called the office manager and 2 foremen and told them their back wages would be calculated. The PPP investigator asked my lawyer if we wanted to stay out of the press. We did. We wanted the truth to be a long game, not a loud game. I moved through my life like a person who had decided not to drown anymore. I went to work at the hospital, sat in rooms where contractors did their jobs without lying, and remembered that not all money behaves the same. I ate soup in Gianna's garage and slept with windows open like fresh air could teach my lungs to be brave again. Evan texted late. People who do wrong prefer midnight. He said, you made a mistake. I didn't reply. He said, are you happy? I replied, no. He said, come home. I replied, no. He sent a photo of a dog we didn't have because false images make some people feel better. I blocked him. The hearing where marble got replaced with wood temporary support hearing. Fluorescent lights. Whispered prayers. The nurse's voice in my bones said, breathe. The judge was a woman who looks like she teaches Sunday school on the side. Cat brooch, stern glasses. A kindness that does not mistake silence for consent. Allison laid out numbers like a plate. My income. Decent. Nonprofit real. Evan's income. Inconsistent. Owner draw fiction. Whitlock's numbers. Dirty. Bank accounts. Vanishing. And the document where Charles had written owner draw over payroll, so often the word had lost its spelling. The judge looked at Evan. Why? She asked. Is your wife paying her own health insurance while you have a company plan? He looked at Marble. He said nothing. Support granted, she said, and banged the gavel with the satisfaction of a woman who likes symmetry. She granted me possession of the car, mine since before marriage, granted me access to the lake house they kept secret from me, deeded to Whitlock Rentals, rented on Airbnb, not so secret, and granted me the thing I didn't know I needed, her eyes when she said, "You are not crazy. The day their world flipped, it didn't flip in a bang. It flipped because the math didn't lie when the people did. The bank called the Whitlocks line of credit. The county fined them for the pay-to-play petting of a city inspector. 2 projects stopped. The DL filed a consent decree. Payroll made 2 men whole who had broken their backs building stonework around pools they would never swim in. PPP clawed back $189,000. The board of the Rotary asked Charles to step down for a season. Marianne stopped sending church. Ladies to my inbox with Bible verses about wives be subject. Evan signed our divorce decree on a Tuesday. There was no grand speech. He cried once, a thin, selfish cry. He said, "You didn't have to." And I said, "You lied." And somewhere in there, the injunction I didn't know I had been holding loosened. He took his box of things, watch, cufflinks, a photo of him at the lake without me in it, and left. Allison shook my hand like I was a colleague, not a client. Gianna hugged me so hard my collarbones popped. At the equitable distribution hearing, the judge awarded me 27% of Whitlock Rentals, the membership units, I had bought with my premarital money in exchange for family peace. She awarded me the lake house as partial repayment of my investment. She awarded me attorney's fees because lies are expensive. She ordered Whitlock Construction to engage a compliance monitor. She ordered Tatum to attend ethics training. I did not know they had a class. Apparently they do. She told Charles she'd refer the case to the DA for review if one more contractor came into her courtroom with a misclassification case. I moved into the lake house for a season. It smelled like mildew and lies. I opened windows. I took down the Live Laugh Lake sign and replaced it with a recipe card I found at a thrift store. Lemon chess pie. I adopted a blue heeler named Scout who floats on his back like a man on a raft when he's happy. I put a desk by a window and did my day job. I slept, I cried. I made casseroles and ate them by myself, and then with friends who drove down on Fridays because they remember the way love doesn't need to be romantic to be loyal. What broke stayed broken. What bent learned a new shape. Tatum cut me at the grocery store once, 2 carts bumping in produce, lemons knocking like the past. She said, "You ruined us," and I said, "You were not a house." She looked at my dog, who looked at her like a man who understands character. She left. Marianne sent a note with her tight script. "You could have come to me." I sent a copy of the first QuickBooks printout I'd handed to her a year earlier, where owner draw sat like the answer to a question no one wanted to ask, and a sticky note that said simply, "I did." She said nothing. Silence is a map, too. We left each other to it. Charles avoided me like repentance. He had a stroke in July that made his leg forget how to behave. I sent flowers because my mother raised me and because bodies deserve mercy even when their owners don't. He asked Allison to ask me to visit. I didn't. I don't need to be the casserole lady anymore. Some people's consequences belong to them. My job is the gate, not the porch. Evan got a job estimating for a builder who pays taxes and doesn't allow cufflinks on site. He said, "It's not glamorous," and I said, "Thank God," and he laughed in a way that felt like a version of him I might have met in a different life where honor lived in his mouth, before the wine did. Mom apologized in a wide, porch voice when we sat in lawn chairs and watched Scout chase anything that wasn't love. She said, "I believed them because believing you meant I had to believe I was wrong back then." I said, "You were wrong back then," and we both sat with it, until the light went gold and forgiveness made space between us like a second chair. The unthinkable ends up being the reasonable next. Step people ask me sometimes what the divorce did to their world. I tell them the truth. It didn't destroy anything that wasn't already being broken by their own hands. It ended a project that was building itself over a sinkhole. It put caution tape around lies. It put my name back in my own mouth. It also built something I didn't expect. A company. I started True Ledger, a tiny consulting practice for contractors who want to keep their books clean enough to sleep through inspections. 2 clients came from the Whitlocks rubble, a masonry guy who's never had a bank account because fees make him itch, and a woman who runs a paint crew and knows more about ethics than everyone in church. I set up payroll for them that doesn't cheat. I taught them to love a W-2. I wrote grant applications for city programs that forgive taxes for businesses that buy lunch for crews that work in 100-degree heat. I got paid in money and in quiet nights. I date again without thinking marriage is a test. A man named Luke, who fixes dishwashers and owns 3 pairs of boots, took me out for tacos and said, "I don't want to talk about your ex. I want to talk about the dog." And I said, "Good policy." And we both watched Scout learn to fetch anyway. The day the world turned, how it felt, it didn't feel like vengeance. It felt like gravity. The day the judge signed my decree, one world ended. A world where I took the lies asked of me and the silencers handed to me and wore them like appliances. Another world began. It had receipts. It had recipes. It had room for a dog. I sat on the deck of the lake house that evening with pie and a notebook and a sun setting itself on fire. The wind lifted the page. Scout put his head in my lap. I wrote a list of rules that would fit on a post-it if I needed it to when the next fire came. Rules for Claire Believe. The thing people show you 10 times. Never. Be a bank for liars, always. Bring soup to the people who earn it. Paper first. Then feelings. Then pie. I taped it to the inside of a cabinet with a magnet I bought at a thrift store that says, "You can't fix people. You can fix a leak. I like the lie in the space." It reminds me that even magnets get tired. Sometimes I sit on that deck with friends from the clinic who hear more pain than any person should, and we tell each other the small wins. A client whose urine test came back clean. A mother who apologized to her daughter before the cake did. A builder who sent a 1099 to a contractor because he learned the law. We eat pie. We talk about how hard love is, how easy bitter is, how important paperwork is. They kicked me out over lies. My divorce turned their world upside down because truth has gravity. If you build a life on anything else, it slides. Today, my life holds. It is not marble, it is wood. It has a dog hair problem and a lemon chess pie stain that will never come out. It is mine.